Welcome back to MP Access. My name is Ekaterina. Today, I am here in the studio with Reneau Longoria. Reneau, this is not your first rodeo. You've been interviewed with us before. We love you on this podcast. Welcome back.
Thank you very much.
Long time no see.
Thank you.
So you serve on both the Education Committee and the Advisory Council for Legal League. I had to read this off my paper because those are just important titles you cannot mess up. So what kind of work are you doing there?
Thank you. I've been on the Education Committee for a few years, and the primary focus of that is not only online education or education in paper, but actually going to the servicers and doing training of all levels, litigation as well as foreclosure 101. That's actually why I'm in town today. We've got, a servicer tomorrow that we're spending the day with and doing a whole series of training. And I love that because I think that really knowing our area of the law, understanding default practice and all of the ins and outs of it, et cetera, is important. The Legal League Advisory Committee is similar. We're also, just as a organization, a professional organization, we're very focused on education. That's really one of our primary goals. And I enjoy being able to collaborate with folks all over the United States because I'm in 6 states myself, but at the same time, I don't have the perspective of California or New York or Florida all of the time, and being on those committees gives me resources to work with when it comes to First Circuit arguments or briefs or trials that we're facing that have more challenging issues. Mm-hmm.
And Reneau, for those who don't know your background at all, how did you get into this industry?
I started out actually as a prosecutor. So I spent 10 years as a prosecutor, both with the U.S. Attorney's Office and with the AG here in Texas. And when I moved north to the Boston area, I started with what was then Doonan and Graves, and I've been there for 29 years. In 2021, I took over the firm, and we are a solely woman-owned business, and it's been an interesting and exciting chapter to be able to take what was already a wonderful firm with a lot of roots in the industry, but at the same time remake it in some ways that are important to me.
Mm-hmm. You seem like such a sweet lady. Why being a prosecutor was part of your journey? Why did you decide to go into that field? It's such a stressful job.
It was wonderful and interesting. I learned a lot. I actually started in law school prosecuting petty offenses in Washington State. And then I went on to work as an assistant district attorney. And more than once, the defendant would say, I want what she's offering. And the judge would say, no, she's the prosecutor. I think that you can disagree with folks and you can be an advocate without becoming disagreeable. I think that kind of civility in our practice is important. Make no mistake about it, I'm feisty as heck. But there's no reason to start off on a personality basis or to be negative. It actually isn't very effective.
Mm-hmm. So this is all a mask. you can be, like you said, feisty.
I am feisty. I am feisty. I was born and raised in Montana, and so I'm a little different both in the way I speak and the way I look at the world, I think. And I think I'm able to use that to my advantage. Sometimes I can see solutions to problems that other folks don't. But there's, I am a sweet lady. Thank you.
And now you're a part of our Legal League team. So what is your favorite part of being just part of that?
It's probably the monthly meetings as opposed to the big conferences. I love the conferences. It's exciting to be able to meet with folks and to learn new things, etc. But I love the monthly meetings, and I love I actually love the preparation for being on a panel or doing training almost more than the training itself. I've run some marathons, and I always liked the training before the marathon better than the actual marathon itself. So I suppose this is not any different.
And you're a bit of a nature girly too, which is why you probably love marathons so much. But we're going to get into that a little bit later. So you also serve across the East Coast a lot, especially in rural markets. So how would you describe what you're seeing there right now?
That's a great question. Actually, I cover Massachusetts, Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, and Montana right now. I'm barred in other states, but those are the states we're currently practicing. And there's a real difference between northern Maine or western Maine, western Massachusetts, most of Vermont, and most of New Hampshire, and say Boston or Portland, and being able to adapt and really know the geography in all of those places is super important. What I'm seeing is a real shift in the nature of what's happening with our assets. In the last 24 hours, I've filed 3 motions to appoint receivers. Last night, I went to a house that the borrower had burnt down herself, and then I went to the dangerousness hearing before the town in northern Maine to try to decide what to do about that. And it's a fascinating process because the town was very prepared in that particular case to take over themselves and to get, the demolition and the work done, et cetera. But when they do that, they have a super lien that's ahead of our clients. And so when I explained that my clients are hoping to get a receiver appointed, that we'd filed an emergency motion and we're hoping to step up and take responsibility for this particular asset, the town was actually relieved. But it's that familiarity with the asset that is key. The reason we knew that this particular asset had, had arson attached to it, is when a file comes into our office, in addition to the bankruptcy search and the other searches that are done when you open a file, we actually do a general media search. So we found the article about the fire. And so we were able to, inform the client that this was going to take a different path. And I'd like to say that that's unusual, but last Friday I had 3 hearings. 2 of them were offensive receivers cases and 1 was defensive. So a lot of my time is actually spent trying to figure out what the best solution is to resolve a situation where something has happened to our asset. Either it's been taken over, or it's burnt, or it's in disrepair, or sometimes it's vacant. Sometimes it's being rented and those funds are being used to fuel the litigation. So there's all sorts of things that can happen, and I think knowing the particular asset is something I'm seeing now that's even more important than it ever was.
So besides houses being burnt in the past 24 hours, you said you filed like 5 claims or 3?
3 in the last few days, yes.
Okay.
So, and here's another example. I've got one where a borrower is in jail, and the folks in the property have no ownership interest. That creates an interesting situation as well. There are situations where there's been a fire and maybe the borrower is engaged in trying to fix the property up. But one of the things that's happened recently is it's so expensive to repair something that sometimes what the insurance is willing to pay is not enough to actually rebuild. And there's a lot of decisions that have to get made around that. And we want them being made in a manner that is respectful to our lien and truly to the borrower's equity. If we allow receivers to come in and sort of remodel the place. I had one last Friday, and that's just what they did. They started asking for permission to do like $85,000 worth of work in March. By October, that receiver's lien was $385,000. So it can happen fast. And just one of the items on it, they had $10,000 to remodel a bathroom. I'd like $10,000 to remodel my bathroom. I didn't. I could do it for a lot less. And it's that common sense approach, I think, that's really important in our industry now, is really taking a hard look at things and saying it's probably not necessary to have a $10,000 bathroom remodel in order to deal with code violations.
Yes, especially in rural areas.
Well, that's true too. Yes, and this was a rural case.
What are some other trends you're seeing in those areas right now?
One of the things that is difficult is that in the Northeast, unlike other parts in the country, we still have really strong values to the property. And because the values are high, it can be tempting to borrow more and stretch things out, etc., in order to resolve underlying financial issues. And that's fine if it's feasible and if there's a long-term game plan. But what we're seeing is folks who were able to take advantage of the half funds and other modifications, we're seeing them come back because the underlying affordability of living in that particular home with their ability to make money, etc., it hasn't resolved itself.
Mm-hmm. And you are also known for being super collaborative, as you mentioned a little bit earlier. So how does that look in your day-to-day work?
I think that's really important. I think sometimes, especially on this side, we don't necessarily band together or spend time even discussing the issues because we compete with one another as attorneys in the default market. But we bring up the level of our practice when we collaborate, when we talk about the issues. Last Wednesday, I appeared before the First Circuit, and before making that argument, I spoke to the attorneys who do appellate work with two of my competitors on purpose, because if I win, it helps us all. If they come up with an argument that I haven't thought of, I want to hear it from them before I hear it from the panel. And I want to be that person for them too. I'm a nice lady. I've been in the industry for almost 30 years, and that has given me a great deal of experience, but I also want to be able to pass that on, and I want to be able to really mentor, not just within my firm, but really within the industry.
Mm-hmm. What types of collaborations you wish you saw more in your space?
Just good old-fashioned chatting. It's more important, I think, to really stop and think about the ideas than it is to necessarily share briefing, et cetera, because we all write differently. And certainly, making one another aware of new decisions that have come down, ways that the court appears to be leaning in its analysis, that's important. But just really talking through the issues and thinking about the long-term consequences. It's really chess and not checkers, and we really need to think sometimes about the arguments and about the decisions with regard to an asset, et cetera, that we're making, because they're going to affect things down the road.
So what I'm hearing really is that communication is a key when it comes to everything in your field or everywhere, really. And it doesn't matter what generation you are from. You just need to know how to speak and make connections and network with people. Can you think of a story when your creative problem-solving skills really helped you to solve a big problem in a case or in a tricky situation in general?
Sure. Actually, we just finished a case that was amazing. The borrower was the worst hoarder I've ever seen. It was over 4,000 square feet on 11 acres. And she had amassed personal property in the house over the course of more than a decade, and the yard. And then she passed away. And it was a historic building, so we had to work with the receiver I got appointed, as well as the vendors and the court, in order to develop a solution that was comprehensive, because even though it was a historic building, there were over 50 tons of garbage that our folks took out of the house even before we decided whether or not we could do anything different with it. And in that case, through collaboration and through cooperation with the town and the state and the receiver and the first lien holder, we were actually able to complete the demolition and the sale of the property. The property is now clean and, back on the tax rolls of the town, and everyone is pleased with our work. But it took creativity, because getting 50 tons of garbage out of a house, it was over 10 feet deep in all of the different rooms and hallways and everything. And then people were continuing to dump outside, so that was just another example of what it took to solve a problem.
Many steps.
Many steps, yeah.
So is there an area or maybe a state you would never want to work in?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I haven't been to every state, but I've been to most of them. And I've lived a variety of places. And I actually enjoy each state for the unique things that it offers. I'm from Montana, so I'm a little partial to that, but things are a bit far apart. I love Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts. I'm trying to think if there is a state that I wouldn't. I've lived in Texas, etc. I don't think so.
Even Detroit?
I actually love Detroit. Detroit, the people in Detroit are fantastic. We have several clients there. I had never been to Detroit, so it was great for me to go and be able to meet them and learn more about it. I lived one summer in Chicago. I worked for the antitrust division, and Chicago has a few more people than I'm comfortable with on a day-to-day basis, but it was a great summer.
Man, this is a mask. You're a fearless lady, Reneau.
I am fearless, yes.
Not scared of Detroit, not scared of anything. Wow. I feel like a little bit of that is also your Native American heritage. Let's talk a little bit about that. You are very proud to be a Native American. In what generation?
So we are all... I grew up in Montana, and I remember my dad really fighting for our federal recognition. I'm a little Shell Chippewa tribe of Montana. I'm also a Turtle Mountain tribe. So my bloodline is a quarter, and part of that comes from two groups of ancestors, so to speak, but we're all landless Native Americans. So I didn't grow up on a reservation or in a Native community, because it's been more than a century since we have had the freedom to, roam the lands and to live and harvest our food and do all of the things. So we are Métis, and we have, blended in with Western culture, etc. But I think that the scrappiness definitely comes from that. Also, I grew up with not a lot. My folks weren't wealthy. My dad was actually had his own business as a collection agent, which is interesting that I ended up in the default area. But my folks, they worked very hard to make sure that we got to go to college and to have a better life. But I think that they always instilled in me that there just wasn't anything I couldn't do if I put my mind to it. And so, for the most part, that's been true. I mean, I'm not saying I'm always successful, but I'm very tenacious.
Yes. How do you think that Native American heritage helped to build that character?
We're very tied to the land, and we're very in tune to not only ourselves, but our ancestors, and we're not afraid to ask for help, both from the people around us so that we work together collaboratively. And there's also just a respect for the differences among us, as opposed to a caste type of a system. So I think.
And you also love nature.
I do.
A lot.
I do.
You spend a lot of time outside. What does your free time look like?
My favorite thing to do now is paddleboard. I love to paddle. I can go for a pretty long time. My son's a fly fisherman. He's actually a fly fishing guide, and so I love to fish as well. And I'm learning to fly fish. I like to hike. Really, anything that gets me outdoors. I'll even work outdoors. If you give me a chair, a lap desk, and some electricity, I'm happy as a clam.
To just stay outside.
To just stay outside and work all day. It's fine. I don't inside. Yeah.
And how did that help you in your professional world too? Your love towards nature, your love towards adventure.
I think it gives me a different currency because my currency, what's most important to me is my time. That is the most important thing in my life and how I spend it. And I appreciate the time that I spend alone. I appreciate the time I spend in nature with people that I love and trust and enjoy being around, including the team that we have in the firm, as well as our larger team as far as vendors and things like that. But this isn't an industry with a large margin. So if you're in it sort of for the money, it's not going to work out. If you want to build a place where you have a firm or a company that people can work with each other, they can have time to raise their families. I have a lot of young mothers and folks caring for older relatives, giving them the schedule and the time and the space that they need to do those things. All of those values are part of our culture, and that it all ties back to just what you value in life, your time as over money.
And I'm assuming that your values changed throughout the course of your life. Maybe this was never the same. Maybe it was similar back in the day. If you could go back in time and just give advice to a different Renee,
that's
10 years ago or 20 years ago or 30, I don't know.
No, I like
What would
that.
you say to her?
My values haven't changed over the course of time, but my ability to set up boundaries to make sure that I'm adhering to those values has changed. For example, I love to exercise, and I pretty much my entire life have always gotten up and run or done yoga or whatever, like first thing in the morning. There were definitely years in my life where I have let work creep in to my time that I've set aside, either for myself for exercise or with my family. And I'm getting better and better at that as I get older. It's still a work in progress. But
And what advice would you give to other younger professionals, or maybe those who are just entering the field that you are in professionally? What advice would you give them?
That's a good question as well. Really spend the time to learn the whys. The why behind the law, the why behind different experiences, different results that have happened, both good and bad. If you're going to do it well. Embrace it, dive in, learn everything about it, and make it your passion. it's funny because when I was a prosecutor, people would say, you're wearing the white hat. This is great. You know, you can be passionate about your job and you're making the world a better place. I am just as passionate about what we do now. And sometimes that's hard for people to hear because they'll think, well, you take people's houses. I do, and I have sympathy and empathy for the people that our work affects. But I feel that we do it in a way that is respectful to them, even if it means that they can't get what they necessarily are advocating for. I try to be respectful to the people who are involved, and to the extent we can find solutions to help them stay in their homes, we do. And when we can't, to be respectful and to try to suggest or for in a mediation, try to mediate solutions that will get them to the next stage gracefully.
Mm-hmm. And before we wrap this up, Reneau, how can people connect with you and learn more about you and your services?
Thank you. Our website is a wonderful way. We have a great interactive website, and it has all of the best ways to connect. I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm fairly active there because I feel like that's our sort of virtual classroom. It used to be that, you spent more time in-house with clients and whatnot, and now we're able to communicate on important issues online in a professional way, and I use that. So you can always message me there. And at the bottom of my signature block is my direct line, and clients use it all the time. I don't answer it if I'm asleep.
Well, Reneau, thank you so much for visiting us today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
We hope to see you next year at the 5-Star Conference.
Oh, and in the spring.
Yes, yes.
Absolutely.
And in the spring
thank
as well.
You.
Yeah, thank you so much for visiting. And thank you for listening to MP Access. Until next time, stay tuned.